Hello, this is Faith at Faith&Books. I'm going to do a really quick edition of Unexpectedly Homeschooling. I've already tried once earlier today and I got interrupted, and I'm expecting to be interrupted any second now. But it's a beautiful day today. I was bemoaning the weather yesterday, but actually later on in the day, the blue skies arrived, and my husband even emerged from his office or our bedroom and asked me if I wanted to go on a walk. So we went on a walk. So it turned out well, and now it's beautiful out. And later today we are going to go try to do some social distancing at a park on a trail, because in Virginia we have a bluebell season in the spring when the forest floors are just covered with these tiny beautiful blue flowers. They're just carpeted and it's gorgeous. We usually have a festival, but that's not happening this year, but we could still go and try to see them. And last year I took the little 4-year-old, who was 3, to see them, and I want to try and do it again today. So we're going to try and do that later this afternoon. So there were 2 things I forgot to mention yesterday when it comes to kids at home and homeschooling them. And there are 2 kind of bedrock principles that unschoolers know and rely on, and they're very foundational and they really are true. And the first is that children are natural learners. John Holt, who coined the phrase unschooling back in the 70s, said, "Fish swim, birds fly, children learn." And they do. You can't not get them to learn. They might not want to learn what's on your agenda. They might not be ready for it, or, for whatever reason they resist it, but they're going to learn something every day. So if you give them freedom to learn, they will do it. And they can't help it. I mean, we evolved this way. We evolved to live in family groups, and children learn by imitation and by conversation and by play. And that's how we're designed. That's how we evolved, and it's kind of artificial the way we've decided education works. And while it works somewhat for certain things, there's a lot of downside to it too. So homeschooling is actually a quite wonderful thing, where you can actually be more natural and closer to the way we actually evolved to learn. And the second thing is kind of a corollary, that all children desire to grow up to be competent adults. That's what they want to do. That's what their imitating is about. That's what their conversation is about. They're trying to find out about the world. Their play is often in imitation of what they see adults doing. So all children have that instinctive urge to grow up to be competent adults. However, it takes a long time for kids to grow up. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. And things can get in the way of that. And a lot of times we tend to throw up artificial obstacles because we want to cram them into this factory mode of learning. And it's not natural. And it can deaden that love of learning. It can deaden ambition. It can damage the soul. So we have to be careful about that. And homeschooling lends itself to a freer way of learning. And so it's really quite beautiful. It can be. Now, this is my last thing. So those were the 2 principles. The children are natural learners, so you don't have to worry about forcing it down their throat. There's a famous quote by W.B. Yeats. Education is the igniting of a fire, not the filling of a bucket. Or maybe it's education is not the filling of a bucket, but the igniting of a fire. And so the school system tends to see children as buckets, empty buckets that they have to fill. And I'm not condemning teachers, because teachers often have, their hearts are in the right place, but they have to fight against the system and the whole methodology. But anyway, so children will learn. Your children will learn. You just have to make an atmosphere where they can learn useful, wholesome things. And the other thing is that they want to grow up to be competent adults, so you can trust in that. They might not be learning on your timetable or the public school system's timetable, but they will learn. They will want to acquire the skills that they need eventually. So my quick suggestion for a really super easy thing to do, and I didn't do this except with my youngest a little bit, but I didn't really need to because she was somebody who loved to make cards and stuff like that. Um, but I knew a family that did this, and it's super easy. You just take old paper, like old printer paper or whatever paper you've got lying around that's going to go in the recycling. And I just folded it because I can't find my stapler at the moment. Hopefully you're more organized than I, and nobody made off with your stapler. But what this mom would do is she would cut up the paper into different sizes. Sometimes she'd make little books, sometimes they'd be bigger, and she would staple them together, and she just kept them in a box or a basket. And her family just had this culture of making books for each other. She started off, I think, with making little books when they were learning to read. She would make a little book. Can you read this? Cat, hat or whatever. But then her kids started to make books for her too. And so they just had this family culture of making books for each other. And it was almost like halfway between writing cards to each other, writing letters to each other. But then she could say to her kids, what was the favorite thing you did yesterday? What was your favorite meal yesterday or something? And then they would write a sentence or something about it. And so you'd be amazed how just having something like that, doing something, and maybe you would start it off by doing something cute to them, take you all of 5 minutes. And then, you can make a little book of, say, your tic-tac-toe book, and then you can make little tic-tac-toe, whatever you call it, boards for them, and then, they could fill that out. Play games with their sibling or their dad or you. Just little things like that, little playful things, and just make it part of your family culture. And then your kids are going to be writing naturally. They're going to be and you can do it for whatever level. It doesn't matter. So making little books and just cutting up this old paper, you're reusing paper that would have gone to recycling. And they sometimes they really like the little books. Actually, one of my sons used to take the little Post-it things and make flip books where he would have kids, he would draw stick figures of somebody doing a cartwheel. And you know how you have those flip books where you can see the moving? Oh, my phone is slipping. It's sort of like an early film or something, that same principle. He'd love to do that sort of thing. So that's something you could do. There's so many ideas you could do with this. Just this basic thing of having these little books available to your kids so that when the spirit moves them, they can do something, or you can do something for them that would connect. And it would only take, a minute or two. Let's see, what else was I going to say? There was something else pressing. I was going to say, not pressing, but some other idea. No, just flew out of my head. Well, anyway, so that's my idea, these little books. And then, they're lovely to save for later as well. But this is a great idea, and I really admired the woman who did it with her kids. They just did all sorts of things with their little books. So that's my easy idea, and I hope that you are staying healthy and not going crazy. It looks like we've got at least a couple more weeks of this isolation, so stay well, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.